So Flat2VR Studio has pretty much revealed everything when it comes to their strategy, how they choose games, which platforms are they going to prioritize development for, what their roadmap looks like this year and beyond. And I must say guys, as a PSVR2 user, this makes me very happy. And I think you will be too. After we go through the recent interview they did with Upload VR. So I don't want to keep you guys waiting any longer, just do me a favor, if you enjoy my content and if you want to support the channel, I just want to remind you that we have a monthly subscriber goal that we're still miles away from reaching. It's okay if we don't, but I would very much appreciate it if you just hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and also share the video out so it reaches more people. Most of you guys are not subscribed, which is a shame, so I hope we can change that real soon. But anyways, thank you guys for your support and let's get into it. So the title of the article says, quote-unquote, Flat2VR Studio reflects on its first year, choosing what to adapt and future plans. This was written by Henry Stockdale from UploadVR.com. Of course, the article will be linked in the description below if you want to take a look at it yourself, but for this video, I'm going to focus on the highlights of this article, and also give you my opinion on what is being said here. And yeah, very exciting stuff here indeed. So reading from UploadVR.com, quote-unquote, created from the Flat2VR community and part of Impact Reality, we've seen countless VR mods across the years, and Flat2VR Studio aims to become a bridge for making such adaptations official. After the team's unveiling back in March 2024, several months passed before its debut game would be unveiled. Few expected that it would be the comedy music game Trombone Champ Unflattened. Quote-unquote, there's a big part of the Flat2VR community that wasn't happy that Trombone Champ was the first game we chose, admits Eric Masher, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Flat2VR Studios. And yeah, right off the bat here, I want to say that this is 100% true. I myself was not expecting that the first title they released would be Trombone Champ Unflattened. I was disappointed actually, and so were other people, especially the PCVR and PSVR2 community. The adult gamers. Not that there is anything wrong with Trombone Champ Unflattened or anything, but it's just not the big name most people had in mind when they first found out that Flat2VR is becoming an official studio. And apparently Flat2VR Studio knew this. They were expecting this response in fact, but they had to do it because basically they had no other choice. Quote-unquote, speaking to UploadVR at PG Connects London 2025, Masher explained that the studio anticipated this response. His first announcement had to prove the team quote-unquote are never married to one genre, which is why Flat2VR Studios showed 4 games during August VR Games Showcase. But why specifically lead with Unflattened? Masher states this quote-unquote was one of the harder games we could have picked because it was completely 2D. But there were several reasons. With established modder Reiko Parta, I think that's his name, officially working for Flat2VR Studios whose prior work included Trombone Champ's Baboon VR mode, a path became clear. Quote-unquote, we were a new studio coming out and not every IP wanted to work with us, so we had to prove ourselves. We had a relationship with the original IP holders, and they were very keen on doing something in the VR space. They just didn't have an avenue or a path to do it. So like I said guys, they kinda had no choice and this all makes sense to me. If you're a newly formed studio, you can't just go knocking on Rockstar Games' door and ask them if they're willing to give you the GTA IP, can you? No, that's not how it works in the gaming industry. First you have to prove yourself. Prove that you know what you're doing and that you have what it takes to get things done. Prove that you can make them money basically. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, especially for these big publishers. So yeah, Flat2VR Studio taking it slowly here by starting with smaller games is the way to go. Thankfully, the community believes in Flat2VR Studio, believing in their potential, and that is why I saw a lot of people who are not interested in Trombone Champ Unflattened, but still they bought it, because they want to support the studio, and it shows. According to Eric Masher, Trombone Champ Unflattened sales were quote-unquote close to what our projections were for the holiday season. And that is despite launching in the same time frame as a huge titles such as Metro Awakening and Batman Arkham Shadow. But then the article focused once again on the importance of proving yourself and how you start building relationships with big players in the industry. Quote-unquote, but what challenges do these adaptations face? As a company founded by VR gaming enthusiasts, relationships building with mainstream publishers is a big one. Building said connections required needing a body of work to show these potential partners. Projects like Kabbalistic's Half-Life 2 VR mods and Reiko Parta's Firewatch VR mod helped, explaining one of his main duties is to build these relationships, Masher had much to learn going forward. Quote unquote, I had no traditional gaming relationships. I'm very rooted in the VR world, I've been in VR space for over 8 years, so I had to start making these connections. It's not ever a one-meeting thing. You're dealing with traditional gaming companies that have big IPs that are still important to them. Getting them to trust you with the IP can be difficult, but we're getting there. Of course, being able to secure a deal for a big game from a big company does not always mean that's the right path. I know VR gamers want to see all AAA games converted to VR, but when you think about it, not all flat games make great VR games. And likewise, certainly not all VR games can make excellent flat games. Reading from the article, just because the leadership wants to play a particular game in VR doesn't necessarily mean it's a great business decision for Flat2VR studios. Quote unquote, there are plenty of games that we could probably go sign tomorrow that may not make a great VR game. That's where we have to be careful, and as VR fans, we know what we want to play. Those are the games that we typically intend to get, but deciding what to prioritize is important. And I must say I completely agree with this. Flat2VR needs to be very careful with the projects they select, because as a newly formed small studio, they just can't afford to f up. I mean, we all seen what's happening in the industry these days. Studio closures, massive layoffs. It's not great, isn't it? So Flat2VR needs to be very strategic in this, and they need to make the decisions that make the most sense for them, financially speaking, of course. And hey, they're gamers themselves. They know what we want to play, so I wouldn't worry much about it. But anyways, let's continue with the article, and now we're getting to the real exciting stuff. This is the main highlight of this entire article for me, and you're going to understand why in just a second. Reading from the article, quote unquote, Quest is another major challenge due to the standalone headset's less powerful hardware. Yeah, no sh**. However, not every future adaptation necessarily faces this barrier. Quote unquote, there will be times that we probably won't go to Quest. We may find a title that is just a great IP, we'll want to stay true to it. And there is going to be no way we'll be able to bring it to standalone. We may just bring it to Steam and PlayStation VR 2. And hallelujah guys, hallelujah. This is exactly what I want to hear from VR developers. And that's the thing, they're really not missing out on much by ditching the inferior Quest hardware. I mean, I recently made a video in which I talked about how some multi-platform VR games are actually selling better on PSVR2 than on Quest. You can check it out in the end screen if you're interested. But let's forget about financials. Let's talk about why this is a huge deal for VR gamers. And look, this isn't fanboying. This isn't a knock on the Quest platform or anything like that. I actually like Quest, and I'm probably gonna start covering Quest games going forward. I mean, I'm a gamer, right? I see a good game that I want to play, then I'm gonna play it. I don't care what platform is it on. I just want to play good games, and as a content creator, I want to cover what I play. I want to help showcase VR to the masses. So why is Flat2VR Studios saying that for some games, they may not develop for Quest is super exciting to me? Well, it's not that hard to figure out, isn't it? This means that these guys are willing to make high-end, high-quality VR ports with zero compromises. By sticking with PCVR and PSVR2, you won't have to lower the bar so that the game runs on Quest. A weak hardware, let's face it. It is a standalone headset with a mobile chipset. It will never give you the same experience as PSVR2 or high-end PCVR. It's just not possible. Like good luck getting Resident Evil Village to run on Quest 3, right? So if you love high-end VR gaming, this is exactly what you want to hear. Whether you play on PSVR2 or on PC, this should get you very excited because after all, this is what we think of when we think of a studio like Flat2VR. We want them to bring us the biggest flat games to VR, and if the only way for them to do so is by ditching Quest, then f*** Quest. I'm sorry Quest gamers, I'm not happy because you're going to play less games. It's not about that. I'm happy because we're going to get high quality AAA games that are built from the ground up for high-end VR hardware. And hey, if you want to have access to those games, let's get a PSVR2 or a high-end PC. It's a win-win situation. But that's not all. The exciting stuff continues from Flat2VR Studio, and this time, it's about PSVR2 only. Quote unquote, Flat2VR Studios would also rather avoid staggering a game launching between different headsets. And Masher acknowledged the uncertainty announcing Trombone, Champ, and Flattened release date in stages brought. Though the studio was worried about quote unquote briefly upsetting some fans, they had to risk it when Sony wanted to feature Unflattened. Quote unquote, Sony was great for us. They were happy we went to that platform, and we will continue to support PlayStation VR2 as much as we can. Once again, hallelujah. Now to me this is important for two main reasons. Reason number one, and this is not a surprise to me, Sony is continuing to support VR developers behind the scenes. You're not gonna hear this from some haters on social media, of course, but it's just the truth. Yes, they're not showing much support when it comes to their first-party studios, although I still believe they have some great PSVR2 first-party stuff cooking that they still haven't announced yet, but overall their biggest support for PSVR2 is coming in the form of supporting VR developers, giving them what they need to bring their games to PSVR2, securing the marketing rights to the best games like Metro Awakening, Alien Rogue Incursion, etc., make sure that these games are showcased alongside the PSVR2, and most importantly, and this is reason number 2, secure some exclusivity deals like what we saw with the excellent Synapse. The fact that Flat2VR Studios is saying that they have a great relationship with Sony, yeah, that gives me a lot of hope that we might see a PSVR2 exclusive from Flat2VR Studios, and this doesn't excite me for the sake of exclusivity. Like, hey, my plastic box wants more games than yours. No, it's not about that. Again, it's about high quality VR. If you're developing an exclusive PSVR2 game, that means you're going to take advantage of all the bells and whistles of PSVR2, and we all know what happens when you do just that. But anyways, this is turning out to be a much longer video than I anticipated, so let's finish reading the article. Quote unquote, presently, Flat2VR Studios has 3 confirmed upcoming games, RoboQuest VR, Wrath Aeon of Ruin VR, and Flat Out. I'm told RoboQuest and Wrath are aiming to launch this year, while Flat Out is quote unquote hopefully on a good path but less certain to land in 2025. So there you have it. Expect to see RoboQuest and Wrath Aeon of Ruin this year. As for Flat Out VR, just like I said in my previous news video, this is probably a 2026 release. All these games will be sold separately rather than an update or DLC to the flat screen versions, which makes sense in my opinion. And that is not all, and this is the final exciting reveal in this article. Quote unquote, we have more titles that we will announce later this year. We are going to announce one major title coming this year in March right before GTC. This will be the largest IP that we've signed to date. It's one of the ones we've been working towards for a long time. What a way to end the article, huh? What do you guys think? What is this mysterious big IP that Flat2VR is going to announce in March that will release this year, probably as a big holiday release? Well, either ways, March is just around the corner, so we're not gonna have to wait that much to find out. That's gonna have to do it for this video, guys. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. I'm very interested to know what you think, so please comment below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, like and share, and for more VR news, reviews, and discussions, make sure you stick with MBG.